Geologically speaking, Japan is actually a very young country. Japan was originally attached to the eastern coast of the Eurasian continent. The subducting plates, being deeper than the Eurasian plate, pulled Japan eastward, opening the Sea of Japan around 15 million years ago. The Strait of Tartary and the Korea Strait opened much later. Around 23 million years ago, the now western Japan was a coastal region of the Eurasia continent. About 11 million years ago, the parts of Japan which became modern Tohoku and Hokkaido were gradually uplifted from the seafloor, and terrains of Chubu region were gradually accreted from the colliding island chains. The Strait of Tartary and the Korea Strait were about 2 million years ago. Japan is a volcanic zone on the Pacific Ring of Fire. Frequent low-intensity earth tremors and occasional volcanic activity are felt throughout the islands. Destructive earthquakes, often resulting in tsunamis, occur several times in a century. The most recent major quakes include the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, the 2004 Chuetsu earthquake, and the Great Hanshin earthquake of 1995. Hot springs are numerous and have been developed as resorts. Humans are believed to have first arrived in Japan by around 35,000 to 40,000 years ago, possibly following great herds of animals across land bridges connecting the islands of Japan with the Asian continent, but more likely on boats via the chain of islands that link Taiwan, Okinawa, and the southern Japanese island of Kyushu. Early man is believed to have reached Japan from the Eurasian continent by three routes. Number 1, from Taiwan to the islands of Okinawa. Number 2, from Korea to Kyushu, and number 3, from Russia to Hokkaido. Some archaeologists believe that people may have arrived on the Japanese archipelago as far back as 100,000 years ago during an ice age when Japan was connected to the Asian mainland by land bridges to the Korean peninsula in the south and the Amur River Delta between present-day China and Russia via Sakhalin Island in the north. Fossils of ancient elephants have been found near Nagano, but no signs of human habitation have been found from the period in which these elephants lived. If you were to ask people to describe Japan or the Japanese in one word, there's a pretty good chance that you'd hear one word over and over again: homogeneous. The Japanese have long prided themselves on the homogeneity of their nation, and it is easy to believe that is the case, but the truth rarely lies on the surface. Homogeneous means that all of the people living within the country are pretty much the same. In reality, Japan, like any other nation, is an ocean of diversity, home to multiple minority groups. One of these groups is Japan's indigenous people, or the Ainu. Don't be surprised if you haven't heard of the Ainu. In fact, many Japanese themselves are unaware of the existence of their own country's indigenous people. The Ainu people are historically residents of parts of Hokkaido, the northern island of Japan, the Kuril Islands, and Sakhalin. According to the government, there are currently 25,000 Ainu living in Japan, but other sources claim there are up to 200,000. The origin of the Ainu people and language is, for the most part, unknown. However, there have been many theories on the subject. One theory suggests that the Ainu people are remnants of the Jomanjin, or the hunter-gatherers who inhabited Japan during the Jomon period in 14,500 BC to 300 AD, and perhaps even before. Around the year 300 AD, another group of immigrants known as the Yayoi people made their way to the islands of Japan, introducing new agricultural techniques and technology and integrating with the Jomon people. It is believed that the Yayoi group may not have reached as far as the northern island of Hokkaido, allowing the Jomon hunter-gatherer way of life to survive in the area. Physically, the Ainu stand out distinctly from the Japanese as a separate ethnic group. Ainu people tend to have light skin, a stout frame, deep-set eyes with a European shape, and thick, wavy hair. Full-blooded Ainu may have even had blue eyes or brown hair. You can see just by the appearance of the Ainu that traditional Ainu culture is significantly different from Japanese culture. First of all, both men and women keep their hair at shoulder length and wear traditional Ainu garb. Men, never shaving after a certain age, usually have full beards, and women undergo mouth tattooing to signify their coming to adulthood. As hunter-gatherers, the Ainu lived off the land. Common foods included deer, bear, rabbit, fox, salmon, root vegetables, and much more. Unlike the Japanese, the Ainu always cooked their food, never eating anything raw. Common hunting weapons included poisoned spears and bows and arrows. One way that the Ainu were similar to the Japanese is in the way of religion. The Ainu, just like the Japanese people, were animists and believed that all things are inhabited by spirits known as kami. While there are many gods in Ainu belief, one of the most important is known as Kim-un Kami, or the god of bears and the mountains. All animals are thought to be the manifestations of gods on earth in Ainu culture. However, the bear is believed to be the head of the gods and is therefore known as Kamui, or God. Traditionally, the Ainu sacrificed bears in order to release the Kamui within them to the spirit world. One tradition, called Lotame, involves the raising of a young bear cub as if it were an Ainu child, and then sacrificing it once it has come of age. However, the Meiji Restoration brought great change to everyone in Japan, including the Ainu people in 1899. As Japan began reforming to Western standards, the government decided to unify Japan by annexing the northern island of Hokkaido and creating a law that restricted the Ainu from participating in their own cultural activities. In other words, the Ainu people were stripped of their land, customs, and language in hopes that they would assimilate to the Japanese culture. It wasn't until 1997 that this law was lifted and the Ainu people were allowed to practice their own customs again, but by that time, much of the damage was done. For nearly 100 years, the Ainu people lived in Japan under a policy of extinction by assimilation. They were forbidden by the Japanese government to practice Ainu customs or even speak their own language in hopes that the Ainu would vanish from the face of the planet. But did they succeed? With so few Ainu speakers left, and many Ainu denying their own heritage to avoid discrimination, you might say so, but things seem to be looking up lately for Japan's indigenous people. The year 1994 marked a great turning point for the Ainu people, as the first ever Ainu, Shigeru Kayano, entered the Japanese Diet, or their version of the parliament. Shigeru dedicated his life to promoting the well-being and awareness of the Ainu people. It was thanks to him, as well as other supporters, that the law forbidding Ainu culture was lifted in 1997. Since then, government funding and cultural freedom has allowed the Ainu people to start regaining and preserving their precious way of life through Ainu language courses, radio stations, and public performances.